everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. Today we've got Philip with us. Hi, Philip. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
Sure. I'm calling in here from Austin, Texas. Live music capital of the world, they say. I am an ex-Meta executive, so I worked here opening the Austin office for Meta back when it was called Facebook.
Yes.
And yeah, and so did a lot of really interesting work there. And then over time, wanted to be an entrepreneur again. And so recently left a few years ago to build Guild, which is my company, and it's a cultural operating system and community management platform for music as our first wedge, and certainly applies to other entertainment industry, verticals. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Well done. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and also being part of Met. That's massive. So, do you want to tell us a little bit more how you got into music?
Yeah, so I music was something that I just grew up around. I was born in Mississippi, not far away from Memphis, Tennessee. So Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry and all sorts of the kind of the blues and rock and roll music was something that I heard a lot of in my house, and country music as well. It was kind of a melting pot there for all types of music, which, spread north as jazz and all over the world. So I think it was just sort of in my blood, if you will. And then moved to Houston, did grade school there, and then came to Austin for college to go to University of Texas. And I really put the guitar away for a long time. Again, I played in a garage band when I was younger, and that was a lot of fun, but I was never really serious about it. I kind of was taking on a professional path.
Yeah.
And then during COVID, like everybody else, I just really got back into it and dove headfirst into playing and songwriting, and then started sharing the music with my friends. And I realized through that process, like my worlds collided. Being an entrepreneur and technologist, meeting musician who's fairly simple in his skill set, singer-songwriter, play the guitar, pretty simple stuff. Those two worlds kind of came together, and I was like, there's a lot missing here for the music industry that it needs, that I have insight into how other industries work and how those could really help.
That's beautiful. And did you have a musical education, or was this all passion driven? How did that happen?
Yeah, no musical education. My mom played a little piano. My dad wouldn't even sing in church, so it was kind of like, like I didn't grow up like just singing around the house.
Yeah.
Certainly wasn't that. But I listened to a lot of different music, and then I got a guitar. I was a bit of a rebel, so it was like, give me a guitar and some cigarettes, back in the day. And we had a garage band. And so I took some lessons, from both kind of like traditional, I guess you would call it like sheet music, church type guitar playing. And then I also went down the street to the long haired, metal kind of guitar playing too. And played for a while, and then I just put it away. I mean, it was 15 years probably. I just didn't really mess with the guitar too much. Always listening to music avidly, all genres, rap, country, rock, pop.
Yeah.
And then actually my wife started singing one day. She was my girlfriend at the time, but
Yeah.
started singing. I was like, oh my God, you can sing so well. I have a guitar. We should go pick it up from my apartment. And then we started playing on the porch, and
Yeah.
that's been about 10 years now of just really solid guitar playing and writing songs.
I can see the guitar on the back wall. Is that the one that you play? Or is that just a display?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. So that's an electric guitar. I'm not so much that kind of guitar player. That's the, Stevie Ray Vaughan type,
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix type. I'm more this one over here,
Okay. Six.
acoustic, country music, campfire, songs everyone knows, played stripped down. That's what I really like. It sort of just a person and their guitar is always really nice.
That's brilliant. I'd love to hear this. So tell us a little bit more about the music industry over in Austin, in Texas right now, because I know it's quite popping.
Yeah, so I kind of smirked, or was a bit of a smartass when I said the live music capital of the world, only because it just really doesn't feel like that anymore. And I love Austin. I've been here almost 30 years, most of my life. So it was, when I was in college, it was much more of a college town, live music in every bar. It felt like Bourbon Street, like when you can
Right.
just hear the music coming out of every place.
Uh-huh.
Whereas now it's much more, downtown is much more posh and chic. There's a lot more money here. There's a lot of technology and good in companies that have created a lot of wealth. And so I think sometimes that pushes the musicians out of the center of the city, if you will.
Yeah.
That's sort of translated into them being a lot more active in the outskirts of towns and breweries and events, places that are made for like concerts of 500 people or 1,000 people or 100 people or 200 people. So it's alive and well here. There's no infrastructure really for recorded music. Everybody goes to Nashville or Los Angeles for that. I think, Nashville, I always say you hear more music before you get to your Uber in the airport than you do in Austin, because it's just that ingrained in the city. And I wish we could get back to a little bit more like that. But I certainly, one of my goals here is to, as somebody who feels like a steward of the city, who comes from having seen it be a music town to being a big part of the technology that, growth that happened over the last 15 years, to then, really wanting to advocate for creators' rights in a world where they're increasingly getting infringed upon, whether that be from, predatory deals or AI or, lack of distribution in tech platforms and all that other stuff.
Which is great. And you've also got South by Southwest down by you, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's coming up here, I believe. So it'll start on the 12th or so, which is like a Thursday, March the 12th, Friday the 13th, really starts to kick off. But it's coming up, yeah, and I've seen that change too. It used to be just a music thing where all the bands would play in all the bars up
Yeah.
and down 6th Street, and now it's technology, it's digital media, it's movies and film and just entertainment across the board. And I think that's not only indicative of Austin's growth, but it's indicative of how media kind of all blends together, right? Music is a part of all forms of media, whether it's video games or advertisements. It's going to be a part of it. So the worlds are blending, and I love the fact that it brings that diverse group of thought to the city. And still the music is played, and it's a good time. There's lots of pop up live music everywhere.
Which is brilliant. And also, you talked about social media and being on Meta. Now, how important is it to utilize social media to get your voice out there to the masses?
I think, I'm having to do this much more than I guess I guess you could say, because I worked at Meta, one might think I'm a social media expert, and I certainly understand it. But the content creation side of it is just a whole nother skill set and phenomenon that, frankly, while we were there, we were more focused on, how to manage the news, how to manage, brands, how to do advertising, that type of stuff. And then because of TikTok and how powerful they became as a creator platform, I think Meta started to address that in a way which was like, hey, we've got to give more power and distribution to the creators. And so you can see that across Instagram with Reels and all those products. I mean, if you post video, short form video, it's getting way more engagement than anything else. So I think that's just a testament to the fact that we're in an era of decentralized creative. Mr. Beast, his company's worth $11 billion. That's crazy. That's bigger than, some TV stations and networks and stuff,
Yeah.
right? So we have a new form of media. It's much more decentralized. And I think that not only do musicians, creators, artists, whatever, have to make as much content as they do,
Yeah.
being in the studio, making a good song. And a lot of them don't like it. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
I, as a entrepreneur and CEO, have to do the same thing. A lot of what I've been doing building this company is not too different from, I guess, building a music career. And in a lot of ways, as we've been building the software, I've been living the life of a musician who's writing and understanding the difficulties of whether that's collaboration or funding for your album or video or making content every day and having to put it out on 10 platforms. So it's more and more difficult for less and less money, and that's a kind of a bad place to be. We've got to do something about that and get it turned around.
Right. And I think it's been decentralized, but it's also been demonetized at the same time, right? And music doesn't have the same value it used to have in the past, which I think is
For
another,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it's troubling. One of the reasons why I left a very comfortable, steady job where I was doing very well and a high performer was because I had never felt the level of emotions, both good, up and down, I guess, if you will, that music gave me. And I'm like, compared to selling advertising, this is like making me feel a totally different way about the world. So once you then go and find that there's a problem structurally, there's a problem morally or economically or whatever you've come to, uncover through this, like, it's like, okay, this is something worth pursuing. And, increasingly music is ambient sound. The low payouts of streaming are widely recognized and documented. I don't have to tell the story of how poorly it pays. Um, but also, I would say that, artists need to adapt and realize this is a new world and there's different things, you have to treat it like a business. And so one of the issues that I saw immediately was there's 47 startup companies all making a widget or a feature or something. And it's just like, you go and ask an artist, how do you manage your career? It's like, well, I've got, these 5 apps and platforms for this and all these others. And we're like, we can do better, and help you out. And also kind of bring an AI perspective to the table. That is, if this stuff's not going anywhere, you need to harness it.
Exactly. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your company and what you actually do?
Sure. So again, the company is called Guild. It's guildtogether.com.
Yeah.
Like build together, but guild together. And yeah, so we started out really trying to solve for music collaboration because, as I mentioned, as kind of a meta product person meets a primitive guitar singer songwriter type, I was like, hey, this is broken. Like, you're telling me that one person's sending files in Dropbox and the other is sending files over, WhatsApp and whatever. I mean, there's just stuff is flying everywhere. There's no project management. And even further than that, inside studios, a lot of times people don't have the split sheets of who wrote the song and who's the, who gets some writer credits or publishing credits and so on. So it's really messy from just a collaboration and creation perspective.
Okay.
And that's what we started off to solve for. If we can solve for who owns the intellectual property, who they make it with, get more songs through completion, and then allow those to be managed in a way that's more independent. Like, okay, cool. Now we got to make some content for this. We've got to distribute this out to the world. Through streaming services, we've got to be all these places that music has to be. That's a lot of what I did at Meta, was build tools for small and medium-sized businesses to help them do exactly that. And if you look at creators, they're the fastest growing small, medium-sized business category in the world. Yeah. Everybody wants to be a creator. And a lot of times they don't have what I would call just good business infrastructure, data hygiene, audience information. I mean, they don't even know who their listeners are, what their demographics are, all that type of stuff. So I'm bringing a model that's been applied to all other sort of verticals, whether it's automotive or real estate or restaurants or flower shops for that matter, right? And like saying, hey, you need this infrastructure in order to run your business. And that comes down to managing your files, managing your projects, who'd you make it with, managing your distribution, managing your payments. And we do that in a system that is not meant to then go, okay, great, we'll go sell to a record label, or we're going to become another extractive big tech company. Yeah. We actually use tokens to give ownership back in that network and that community back to the creators. So by just using the platform for things that are good, better tools for your day-to-day business, you actually begin to own part of the network and community so that you have equity. I always say, like, if to really be successful, artists, music creators, whatever you want to call them, you need to own your intellectual property. You need to own your audience, not rent it from a social media platform. And you really ideally need to own the platform itself in some kind of position where you have a long-term stake in it. So that's what we built for. And, I think we're coming at this in a really good way. And like I said, if we just do our jobs of being a great software platform, then all the rest of the stuff is gravy, because frankly, I don't think anyone's really bringing together all these workflows in a good way right now.
It sounds fantastic. And it's taken a lot of work away from the artists as well, right? With creativity, being on social media, but also understanding who your market is. How important is that?
Yeah, it's critical. So one of the things, when we started building for collaboration, as I mentioned, there's this concept in the tech world of like hair on fire problem. Yeah. And collaboration and keeping your files nice and orderly was not the hair on fire problem for creative. I mean, if you're a creative, you understand, like, we can be a little messy with our files and our processes and stuff. That's just who we are, right? So but that wasn't enough to make people go, oh, I really need to do this. The hair on fire problem is distribution and content creation and getting, because you have to like write songs, go on tour, manage your fam, all these things, and then you have to go and make, 3 TikToks a day. So what we tried to do is to say, how can we help them tell their story by just being?
Yeah.
Because that was what I wanted to do. If I could just be, and that by being, I mean, like, maybe I'm recording my thoughts, I'm putting up behind the scenes while I'm like writing a song, I'm doing these normal day-to-day things, and I can put it into a system that helps tell that story automatically.
Mhm.
Well, then we're now just having my story told for me. And that's what I think, it's so hard for creators is they have to do everything, from make the song and write the song, come up with it, to all these other things. And if you look at what Shopify did for small businesses when we lived in a world where Amazon dominated everything for a while there, I mean, when you went to your doorstep, it was only Amazon packages. And then Shopify came along and allowed every business to have an e-commerce site where they could manage their catalog and they could take payments. And there's a lot of that that just doesn't exist for creators, and music creators in particular. So we said, hey, if we're going to build that, why don't we just go ahead and build the rails for the whole world to work on it and work together? Because at that point, you'd actually have an opportunity for structural change
Yeah.
versus just being another app.
Absolutely. And you've also touched on authenticity, which I think is extremely important nowadays. It's being authentic, but being your true voice. What recommendations would you give to someone trying to make it in the industry right now? That there is so much noise, there is a lot of competition, but how do you stay authentic and original?
Yeah, and it's even worse now because of AI slop, where you don't even know if the people are real anymore. It's gotten to be quite
Right.
messy.
Yeah.
So I think number one is when people talk about, for instance, Suno or some of these apps that are allowing you to make music with a text prompt or an audio prompt, and they're getting really upset about that. And I can understand there's some morality questions around and legal questions around training a creative tool that off of other people's creativity and then
Yes.
putting them out of work, right? So there's a bunch of problems with that. But I think I also say, like, we'll figure that out, but the story is the most important thing, the human story. And so we attempt to help them craft that, as well as show the authenticity of the piece itself through provenance. So because the files are there, because the communications of around the ideas, like, hey, we should do this, because the participants are there,
Yeah.
everybody is in this project space, the story begins to tell itself. How did the song come together? And we actually allow creators to provide access to fans or supporters for that. So if a use case would be, hey, I'm doing a new album, I want you to help me fund it, and in exchange, you're going to get to ride along behind the scenes with all of the songs before, the ideas, everything before it hits social media, before, and certainly before it hits streaming and all that. So I think there's ways that you can build into people's workflows and their day-to-day life the ability to tell their story, because it's become imperative.
Yeah.
And I think good stories still have the opportunity to go viral because we're humans, and it just comes down to marketing.
But
Songs are not hard to make.
yeah, we also want to connect with each other and relate to each other in different ways, right?
Yeah, 'cause that's what I mean. We started off as a collaboration platform, and I stand by that even with AI, here today. AI is a operational collaborator as humans go to tell a story.
Yeah.
And so when you write your songs, and this is classic like Rick Rubin stuff, like don't write for anyone else. Like, that's just, it becomes polluted and authentic. Write for yourself. And that's why, if you want to go and have a song write your lyrics in ChatGPT, by all means, but it's not really coming directly from you, and it may be even your story. So is that like having a ghostwriter write for you? I don't know. My point is, for me particular, writing my own songs, staying authentic to the sound of everything, the guitar, the melody, my voice,
Mhm.
all of those things, I think, is just important. And if you make it for yourself, you'll end up in a good spot. It's just hard when you're trying to make a living and you're doing things and they don't work. And so what we're thinking is, like, let's just take an operational approach to this and then let the music, sort of stand for itself. I think the other thing too is, it's great to have a small group of people who really love you for you, who you are, than people who are just listening to you one song in the background of 1,000 and don't care.
Yeah.
You can make a career like that too if you provide them access to your life and to your creative process. So just be honest with yourself and the people that you're trying to bring along for the ride with you, and that will work out.
keep it real, but also you mentioned collaboration and networking because I think that's extremely important. How's that helped you to build where you are right now and get you to where you are and stuff?
For sure. I think it makes better music. I think it heals humanity at an altruistic level. Like, I make music with people from all over different genres, races, political views, and it just is, it's the one thing that connects us all. So I think it's great for every reason around the creative side. But if you want to get to the like just the business end of it, if you've got 500,000 followers and I got 500,000 followers, we made a good song and I want exposure to yours. That's good, right? And you exposure to mine. So collaboration is also a distribution strategy. And I don't really like it when it's super forced, right? I'd like the song to be good and natural, but I can understand there's a business alignment to it as well. And you've seen that happen with hip hop and country and
Yeah,
hip hop and rock and country and rock. And I mean, it's just, it all sort of blends together over time.
as well. It all goes in cycles, doesn't it? Stuff comes up and
It sure does.
and then next stuff comes up. But I also want to ask you as well, like you've brought so much knowledge to the table. What have been your struggles and your barriers accessing the industry, but also trying to make it more equal and fair and ethical? Because that's what I'm getting from you right now.
Yeah, for 100%. And I think the kind of the one thing is when I worked at Meta, you don't take advantage of this or even get a big head about it, but it's a different way of operating because people were coming to us. It was easy to get meetings. You could sort of get in any door
Uh-huh.
because of the company. Even before it was proven, it was just like, the movie was out before they were making a lot of money. So it was kind of a hot deal. And then when you get out as an entrepreneur, all of that goes away. It helps to have it on your LinkedIn, right? And to be able to get maybe a meeting with an investor or things like that.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, no one cares. Like they don't care. Everyone is really concerned with what they're doing. They have a way of doing things. And so finding, your way in a world that I came from tech going into music and entertainment in general, it wasn't just like widely accepting of that, right? So I had to do a bunch of networking on LinkedIn and just talking with any and everyone I could to maybe make sure I had the nuance and I was properly aware of how things worked without necessary, because I think it's a powerful place to be where you understand how they work and not really care how they've worked,
Yeah.
because they need to be changed. And I think that's why coming from tech and being a disruptor with respect for the industry, unlike a lot of tech companies where it's like, again, training off of their material and putting creators as a secondary thought, or at least the work that they had put into, to the date, the copyrights and intellectual property. But for me, it was like, just sort of like having to start from square one a little bit with regards to the network, because it was a new industry. And then within that, just running into the situation that people are gatekeepers, that's just a little bit of way the entertainment industry works, which is they trade on their network and who they know. Whereas in tech, it's a lot more like, hey, I'll introduce you. And then whatever happens after that is up to you. But in entertainment, I found it's more like what's
Okay.
in it for me. And that's sort of a different mentality, but it's
Mhm.
fine. I understand people build networks and they build their business and their personal brand over a year's time, and they don't want somebody coming in and screwing that up, particularly some bullheaded tech person. And so I always am super conscious of that, while also saying, the reason why you're upset with the where it is because it doesn't work very well.
And it's also got to change. And I think change can also be
Yeah.
uncomfortable for a lot of different people, right? So you're a disruptor yourself. So how do you find that and managing that, navigating it?
I feel like a change agent, and I'm pretty disruptive by nature. That I was even that way at Facebook, where Meta, where you had a lot of change agents and people who were ambitious, but I kind of was just like, really have never had a ton of reverence for the way things are done, and have a healthy understanding over now multiple technology cycles that they always get redone. And right now, between AI and blockchain, you have some of the biggest technology shifts and opportunities we've ever seen, and certainly in my lifetime, and I think you could argue in humanity's time. So it's an interesting time to be here, and you can resist that or you can get on board with it. But I think that, ethically speaking, having worked at a company that I believe was ethical, but also whose product was the people who use it, their content and their attention, There's a better way going forward where I think the creators can have more control. People can have more control over their data and the choice of what, they see. I think we're also going to move away from this, short form, super addictive, lowbrow content in a lot of cases to more even slightly longer form, episodic. I've noticed on TikTok and Instagram, there's not a lot of business content. That's one of the things I want to get into is like, I think there's a gap of just sharing what I know and what I think about
Absolutely.
technology and the industry on a place where you don't have a lot of super credible sources. So it's an opportunity and it's a really good time to be an entrepreneur, but you sort of have to just walk a little into the unknown. And that's where people get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Even my wife, highly uncomfortable when I told her I was leaving Meta. She's just like, all right. I mean, she believes in me, but it was like, it's been hard because that was very secure and very straightforward.
And you've also got to be consistent all the time. So, what kind of advice would you give someone coming into the industry where you've always got to be consistent? You've got to be on social media, but you're also creating and getting out there.
Yeah, I'm trying. So I'm not the best person to tell you exactly how I'm doing it right now because I'm just now getting kind of, I think, getting better at it. I will say that the biggest thing is if you have to be managed yourself, then figure out some way to have yourself managed, whether that's calendar reminders or in, my case, I've got some help by people who help post. So now it's like, all right, well, they're managing me. They're like, you owe me this content or you've got to review this every day to do it. So I think putting operations in place that make you, that you hold you accountable to yourself and to the system are really good. But I think if you wanted to zoom out and talk about consistency in general, one of the things I've learned is I've watched a bunch of people who I might have considered competitors along the way or going in a similar direction fall off over the past years that we've been working on this. And I really believe if you just show up every day and you make incremental improvements, 90% of the people you will beat just in a war of attrition, they will quit. And then you've got to worry about a much smaller subset who won't. And
Yeah.
at that point, it comes down to, is the quality of my product better? Do I care more? Do I execute better? And all those things. But if you're dreading getting up in the morning, doing what you're doing, you're not going to be consistent. And so you have to be excited about it. And I think that takes a little bit of process and a little bit of reward from the things you do. I will also acknowledge, like, as a songwriter, that it's hard. Some days you just don't have it. I don't think you can force it either. It feels like when you get the song right, it just comes to you from the heavens, from the universe. So like, I don't know. I that's a hard part for me. I sort of segregate that part of my life out and be like, that's one day that I go at an evening and I just play and I relax and I forget about being technology entrepreneur. And then otherwise, you just live and breathe it, and just try to be as consistent as possible. Because if you one day turns into 2 days, you're screwing around, you lose weeks, and
Yeah.
then.
We've all been there. That's part of the creative process, I think. We
Yeah,
do.
it's part of humanity. You being just
Yeah.
being a human too, right?
Mhm. And Phil, how could people connect with you, find out more about your company, your business? They want to collaborate, connect with you. How could they do that?
Yeah, I think the easiest way, as I mentioned earlier, so guildtogether.com, GUILD together.com is the website. You can, if you're a creator, go pop on, create an account. It's free, and we're rolling out all sorts of amazing features just to make your life easier, and really do the stuff that sucks that's outside of creativity in a lot of cases, metadata and file versions and distribution and publishing. And all those things are coming on board because we can stitch them into this framework we've built around just having all of your intellectual property and your projects in one place. Find us on social at Guild Together as well, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, and so on. And then me, myself, at Phillip Rather, PhillipRather. But love to connect with, creators and musicians. We're so at a great spot right now where we're not big enough to where we can't have conversations with everybody, take feedback on the product itself,
Yeah.
incorporate it. I mean, over time, we really want the community to end up shaping the product direction and so on. I've just seen in a lot of those projects historically, when you have too many cooks in the kitchen, you can't get it from 0 to 1 very well. And I'm very good at 0 to 1. And then over time, we want to make this a thing where people just, the community ends up owning it. And that's part of that, the earning and rewards and tokenized structure that's that's happening. So we'll be launching all that publicly. We believe the initial size of the creator pool that's up for people to earn is in the tens of millions of dollars, mid tens of millions of dollars. So it's a lot of incentive we have to be able to have people to work with us and just use a platform that, like I said, is better software and will make your lives easier, but you can actually own part of. And then finally, I'm down to make music with people I love. We've got some songs that'll be coming out soon. Over COVID, I probably wrote 200 songs, and we've got hip hop songs, country songs, rock songs,
Yeah.
pop songs. It'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, that's interesting because I've got a new project coming out and I'm always looking for collaboration. So we're going to have to hook up on some of the stuff that you've got coming out. But also,
Yeah,
I think it's really good to make sure that people understand that it's about networks, building relationships, and actually, meeting people and getting out there and put your name out there too, right?
it is. Like the most important thing is you make the songs that you can make, find people who expand your creative and skill set. Like all of that stuff is really important. So we started that in the technology world. To get press, you've got to talk about AI, you got to talk about blockchain, all that shit. But at the end of the day, it's like if you work with people, you have tools that help you get your music out, and that all becomes a lot easier to find. You're going to have more music, more completed projects, better music, better distribution, and then you start building a fan base that you can contact directly. So get their email address, get their phone number, so that you can put them on distribution lists and not rely on an algorithm that change on a whim.
Great advice. Thank you so much. We've got 5 minutes left. Are there any major wins or successes you'd like to share with us before you go?
Yeah, we're going into, as I mentioned, our token generation event, and so this is an opportunity for us to go out and really kind of go from being in the stealth mode and testing the product. We've got about 2,500 beta testers on, and so we've working out all the kinks and have got feedback, and we're moving kind of to more of a conversational first user interface. So a ton of stuff happening over the next I would say over March, at this point. So during South by and around South by,
Yeah.
we'll be, hit us up if you're here at Guild Together on Instagram, and then we may be doing some interesting things around South by. And then after that, our big win is that we've secured a bunch of financing to go out and launch this token. And what it allows us to do is have creative capital to build out marketing campaigns, to promote artists that are using our platform and highlight them, to be able to subsidize creation and grow the network. And really, that'll be the big deal sometime relatively soon, when we're able to announce that funding, which then creates an opportunity for again, creators to earn not only money but an opportunity and a stake in the network and community itself.
Brilliant work, and congratulations and good luck with everything that's going on. You've been doing some great work, and it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, and this was a great conversation. I wish you the best of luck too.
Thank you so much. We'll be back in touch again soon. Thank you.